Great. Let's start there. That was good. So we're live now, apparently, are we?
Yeah.
So Pat, you've done this many times, right?
Yeah.
You can tell by my expression, I'm not that comfortable right now. I've done one live stream before when Facebook first started it, and I couldn't understand why all these people turned up for it. Like, why weren't they at work? So, yeah,
they don't work.
Anyway, so how's your experience been with helping us with this Kickstarter? Because you're the guru on this stuff.
Oh yeah, no, it's been cool. I remember when I first read the book, and I was just thinking, oh, this is gonna be great. You know, it's I love discovering new creators through doing this, because I've done campaigns from people I had never heard of before to huge names, and I heard of you guys quite a bit, and I was always interested in checking your work out, and to be able to do it on a book like Tune that's so interesting and visceral and idea driven while still focused on character, it felt like a really cool introduction to you guys. And my hope is that when people on Kickstarter see this, that they'll have the same experience, that if they're trying you out for the first time, that this is quite the book to had that first TPUB experience.
That's very nice. I feel slightly awkward because your book that I have over here, Destiny New York, you have very nice characters, uplifting storylines, and hope. I have horrible people who do horrible things to each other. So
just wait a few volumes.
Okay. Okay, so we have some questions here from people. Samara from Discord says, Neil, what is your writing routine? When are you the most productive? Okay. So I'm going to ask you, Pat, the same question in a minute. So I discovered something, and so I can write my own. That's fine, but I found that if I have someone else I'm writing with, it's so much easier and so much faster, and also gives more variety. And this is I'm going to just point out my weaknesses, because why not? I'm bad at social media. I'm bad at this live streaming. I'm not the best at characters. So a lot of writers believe that everything should be character driven. There are a subset that don't. They think it should be plot driven, and then you can put the characters in afterwards. There's one writer that George R. R. Martin spoke to. He wouldn't say who it was, and she'd written a whole book, and she had a character as X13 or T9. And when the whole book was finished, she just did find replace and put the names in. And she was a very successful writer, very. But he said he couldn't believe it, because unless he has a name associated, he couldn't understand and really get into the character. Now, when you've got 500 characters like he has in just one book, I don't know how you can do that. I struggle with that. So I like working with other people who are more writers who are more interested in character, whereas my strength is plot, and I can do plots very quickly. So my writing routine used to be trying to do it first thing in the morning and get it done. Just an hour or 2 hours, that's all you need. Now I try to just schedule calls with people who want to collaborate with me, and they tell me things about, like, for example, their Jamaican dad, what he was like, or various things like that. And then I can put those characters into the plots that I come up with. That's my long answer. Pat, give me a better one.
No, I mean, I sort of feel a mirror version of the same side. I do really think in terms of character, and plot has in many of my works, plot has been a bit secondary to me, and it's characters that I kind of obsess over and play with their arcs and see what's the best way to get them where I want to be, and that often does take changing the story here and there. But yeah, as far as time of the day, that's definitely, it's impactful for me. My schedule is an absolute mess right now. It's kind of based on meetings, and I have some meetings that I do really early because they're collaborations with people overseas, like TPUB, or like even further away where I mean the time zones are not really often in line with mine. And then later on, I'll do live streams at night my time. So it's really depending on what my business side of my schedule is looking like. Ideally, though, I would love to wake up at Around 6 a.m., get to writing at 7, and focus on creative for about 3 to 4 hours before going to the admin side. That would be my preference. That does it happen? Pretty much, absolutely never. But it would be great if it did, right?
Nice. Do you have a target, like a word count you want to do each day, or you just write as it comes out?
I write as it comes out, but I do often have a goal I want to hit. Like, for example, today I have a video game that I'm writing, and I need to do quite a lot of work on writing the text for the skins there. And I have 3 different artists that I have to get pages to for current projects. So if as long as I can hit each of those, I'll be pretty good right now today.
Cool. I have a question here from Aaron Branches on Twitter. Are any of your characters based on real life people? Yes, but not really. Scenes are based on real life people. I mean, you, because I'm not a character-driven writer, you are, so you probably do base yours on real people. But I imagine it for certain scenes, what I know someone genuinely believes about politics or whatever it is, and how they would react in a situation, or if they're narcissistic, for example. One of my most talked about stories in Twisted Dark was this story about this guy breaking up with a girl, and then her laughing at him. You're breaking up with me? Oh, okay, let you think that, honey. Fine. And then she just starts slowly like insulting him more and more, and you're a bit smaller than average, right? And then just let's just keep this civil. And it's not my fault you can't handle the truth. You want the truth? Okay. And then he lays into her, because there's this woman I met once. I never had a relationship with her, but I hated her. I thought she was horrible.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just said what I thought, not at the time, but afterwards, what I would have loved to have said to her. And I laid it out into this character. And then the amount of comments, people going, wow, this guy's spitting truth. This is just brutal. Teach me how to take people down like this. And it's never a conversation you have in real life. It's one that you wish you could have. So I took a situation, but that I don't go into that much detail with that character. I don't base an entire character on someone. I just took a little bit of it, if that makes sense. That's what I do anyway.
No, that makes perfect sense. I've there have been situations too where I have gotten catharsis or something that I didn't say through kind of working that into my own work as well. I do sometimes sort of not fully, but the skeleton of a character is based on someone or experiences that I've had with someone, or often me. In Destiny New York, there is a huge part of me in many of the characters. Or in my current campaign, I have this campaign. I summon Cthulhu to fund my Kickstarter. That it's very much like it's about the comics industry and trends that we follow. And the idea is that it's this is the end meets the comics industry. So the characters are actual comic book creators. I'm in there. My friend is in there. Russell Nolte, Travis Gibb, Charlie Stickney are all characters in the book. So the idea there was that if we're going to parody and create our own comics industry, why not make the characters real indie creators? So that is a more humorous take on it. But the answer for me is more of a flat yeah, that character and experience in real life certainly inform the same in fiction for me.
I do have one more other thing to say, because it happened this morning, actually. When I was dropping my son off at nursery, I ran into an old friend from business school. His name was Jazdeep Batra. And apparently I told him years ago that I'll put him in one of my comics. And he said, you haven't done that yet, Neil, but you have with other friends. So I said, okay, look at dude, all right, fine. So I'm going to have to get him drawn in at some point.
Oh, yeah, it's time for that now, yeah.
Yeah, right. Let's look at the next question. Avan from Discord. What is your all-time favorite comic and why? Ooh, oh, you had the same reaction as me.
It's rough. That's a rough one, yeah.
I mean, I do have quite a few, and it goes over there.
Whoa, you do.
That's not all. I threw away a bunch of ones I didn't like. So I'm going to tell you this in. Okay, well, what got me into comics was Watchmen, because I thought comics were. I got into them when I was 15. I thought they were really cool, and then I stopped reading because they all seemed the same. Spider-Man seemed um, he'd fight this bad guy and just beat him, and then another one came along who was even stronger. He had to struggle, and then just beat him, and then just the same thing happening again and again and again. And so I thought, I'm done with comics. I've grown out of them. I just grown out of that one title, not the medium. And I read Watchmen. I couldn't believe how intelligent it was, how much it made me think, and that's what got me finding other stuff. So I have to give credit to Watchmen. But in terms of my all-time favorite, which one I've read the most, I don't know. I really like Why the Last. I think the first 11 issues of Fables probably, because I've read that maybe 5 times. Mind you, I read Antique Bakery 5 times as well. You know what? I can't answer that question. Pat, give me your answer.
No, it's a hard one, man. I will definitely echo Why the Last Man, as it is the ideal of what I think about a long-term, character-driven, idea-rich, creator-owned story. Those are very rare these days because publishers often, can't commit beyond 4 issues because of the direct market not being able to support that. So I get why it's rare. It does suck that it is rare. Saga is also an exception to that right now. Brian K. Vaughan, just his long-term storytelling is incredible. Terry Moore, to me, is the GOAT. Strangers in Paradise, I look at that as, hey buddy, as, an iconic, long-running, beautifully, oh yeah, me too, right behind me this way. Yeah, I think that Terry Moore is one of the greatest as far as matching storytelling to art. He is an all-time great cartoonist, and it's a story that surprises you over time, rewards you, and that kind of experience is what I hope to give readers on anyone, to anyone who invests in me long term, long enough to read a series that long. The payoff needs to be high, and Terry Moore and Brian K. Vaughan both deliver quite well.
Sorry, I don't understand social media. Some people are saying hello, and so I don't know if I'm typing back in the correct place or not. So, right, let's move on to the next question.
Yeah.
Sorry, I panicked there. I just don't like the social media stuff.
Oh, no, it's all good. We can just shout them out right here. We have Art Crumbs, T-Pub, that's you. Yeah, but Art Crumbs is a friend of mine, great creator. And hello, Art Crumbs.
Okay, so you can see the same thing as me. I knew that. I was just testing. Right, next question. 2 questions from Wannabe NPC. What inspired you to make a comic this gory? What excites you and inspires you about writing this kind of violence? Oh, okay.
Is it a question or an accusation?
Well, it's interesting because a lot of the gore actually comes from the artist, not from me.
Yeah.
I write down the situations I want. Sometimes I think we haven't had enough action for a while, so I want to increase the action side of things. Actually, a lot of my stories haven't been gory in the past, so maybe I'm lying here. I think when I first started writing, I never wanted to be a writer. I was in my mid-30s when I first started, and I was terrified of being boring because I hate reading boring stories. So I thought if it was dark and psychological or with a bit of gore, it was less likely to be boring. At least you get a reaction. So I think that's my historical bent why I continue to do it. I don't think this is particularly. No, it is.
Oh yeah, it is.
I don't want to give away like how the main guy lost his nose because it's important for the story later. But that was based on a true story that I saw in the news, and I thought, wow, that's intense.
That is.
So if it makes you remember it, I saw it years before I even thought about being a writer. I thought if you remember that long, has that effect on you? I might have that effect on other people. So I guess that's why I don't think I wanted to make it gory, but I wanted to make it impactful. What excites you and inspires you about writing this kind of violence? Violence doesn't. I like cool action. I like extreme graphic violence. I'm not really a fan of, to be honest. Even though I've made some apparently, um, it doesn't excite me. What excites me is something that makes people stop and think. Either, oh wow, that was cool, or wow, that was vicious, or wow, why would someone do that? It just I like thinking the most.
Yeah.
Uh, Pat, you can try answering this question if you want, but you didn't make a gory story, so I don't know.
Well, I have before. I mean, when I think of gore, the goriest I can think of is Crossed from Avatar. And I remember I read the first arc and I was like, wow, this is too much for me. And later on, Avatar invited me to write backup stories in the second run of Cross Plus 100, which used Alan Moore's notes on his Cross Plus 100 run. My my duty was to sort of take the Garth Ennis run, the long running series, and fill in the time between the 100 years later that Alan Moore wrote based on Alan's notes. So doing that, I had this baseline of really intelligent notes to write from and to get this world to an interesting place using that extreme gore, but also using it as a vehicle for character and for exploring, the idea of what that world is. And that was cool for me. So that worked in that context. There have been some projects that have gore that I've been pulled on for work for hire that I'm like, if I was in control, I wouldn't be doing it this way. But then, there are more stylized books where the gore can be, part of the action, part of the ride, almost part of the humor too. Less so in Tuned. Tuned is more of realistic sort of it's stylized, but in a very artful way. I wouldn't even call it gore, I guess, because gore I think of like more in lines of like Saw and Hostel, but Tuned, there is still a psychology to the use of the uber violence, and there's this real sense in Tuned that no one is safe. I remember this is absolutely non-spoiler free, but there's something that happens about halfway in where I read it and I was like, oh, this has to be a fake out. I have my idea of what's gonna be going into the climax, and you pull the rug out of that in multiple ways throughout the book, where it keeps shifting. And I thought using that violence, and whoever read the preview on Kickstarter knows sort of the vibe of this main threat in Tuned. I think you use it in a way that keeps readers on their toes. Beyond how it makes you feel, you also just you remove the element of the predictable by having a character that is completely unpredictable.
Okay, offline, I have to know what you thought was going to happen and what didn't. I want to know that. Cool. All right. Well, thank you for that. Next question. Are there times in your own life when you either felt like a super soldier or a monster? Maybe both at once. Do you ever see parts of yourself in your characters? Well, I've never felt like a super soldier. I have felt like a monster when I'm disciplining my children. I make them cry. I'm like, well, I have to do this, but I don't want to. See myself in character. Yes, or sometimes I write what I think, or and as you said, bits of you and lots of your characters, because you have to base it on real life. Sometimes I take other people to do responses. So to answer that question, have I felt like a super soldier? No, unless when I was a lot younger and a lot drunker. As a monster, yes, frequently. As I get older and my children start pushing my buttons a bit, and do I see parts of myself in the character I write? All the time. That
super soldier or monster?
it's a cool question, by the way.
It is. I have felt as if I've gone into a super mode sometimes when getting a lot done. That feels really great. And I feel like sometimes during those times, I feel like I'm monstrous toward myself. I'm definitely sort of setting myself up for burnout, I guess. But monster,
You have a monstrous beard.
I do have a monstrous beard. Yeah. There are certainly times where I will, I'll say something that I didn't want to say, or that I will have, you know, um, that like I guess anger will come out in a way where I'll look back later on and go, I didn't want to be that way, or I don't like to argue. I don't like to be upset with anybody, including myself. So I guess that can make me feel monstrous. But I try not to.
So that was a long answer for no.
Probably no, yeah. Probably no. Hopefully no.
Okay. The next question. Question from I can't pronounce that username. Hey Neil, do you try to look like a Muppet or does it come naturally? Right. Right. I think that's was that you, Pat? You slipped that question
That wasn't me. That wasn't me.
in? I'm afraid it comes naturally, and one of my ex-girlfriends thought I looked and laughed like Ernie from the Muppets. So yeah, why are you nodding your head, Pat? Shame on you. Oh dear. Oh well. How about you? Does looking like a Muppet come naturally to you, Pat?
Let me see. Let me see who I would look like. Muppet wise. I kind of have the same skin tone as Miss Piggy. I'm Irish, so I kind of lean pink. So yeah, I guess it does come naturally.
Yeah, comic book writers are Muppets. Cool. Right. From at Zlorgi from Discord. What comic that hasn't been released are you most excited for in the future? Oh, okay. This one I'm doing it with Raymond Tyler, actually, who does our social media for us, because he actually is smart and young and understands these things, unlike me. It's called Tabernacle. It's something I've been working on for about 9 years. It's been, I've squirreled away ideas all the time. And it's massive what I'm doing. I'm actually going to write, and it's something I tell, because new writers always ask me for advice, and they say, I've got this idea for a 3-volume or a 7-volume series. I'm like, don't start that yet. Okay, if you have that, do that later. But start with just doing a page, then do 4 pages, then do 10 pages, and then when you've learned how to tell those, you can tell longer ones, because longer stories are much harder than short stories. You have to think, and it's the character arcs alone. Short stories can be very short. Anyway. You know what I'm talking about. But Tabernacle is massive. I'm writing probably 7 graphic novels in one go, so the whole thing will be written. So that way, and I'm going to go through it a few times so that it all ties together. It makes sense, and the character arcs long to play out over the long term. It's about the world's first prison for supervillains. People have started getting powers, and this guy goes to the Senate, and he's a billionaire, and he wants to spend his money in a public-private partnership. So he still wants to make money, but he's doing it for a good reason. And he says America has 4% of the world's population, but 26% of the world's prison population. Our solution is to lock people up. And with people getting powers, this does not work. We need a new solution. If we do not act on this, this is more dangerous than climate change. And he introduces and has more statistics and facts, and he shows this is a pig in an American farm, this is a pig in an African farm, and the African farm looks so much healthier and clean. So if you keep people in filth, they will act like filth. Look at this American prison, look at this Norwegian prison. We can do better. Let me send out my vision for Tabernacle. And then it's and he's genuinely trying to do good, but it's rather intense, with a lot of violence, a lot of twists, and action. And that's what I'm most excited about. And I have to give big credit to Raymond Tyler for working with me on this. It is my story, but I couldn't have done it without him, because he sits with me and he gives ideas. And sometimes I go, that's not good. He asks me the best question: why isn't it good? And so I tell him, and I figure out what the problem is. And it's been an honor and a privilege. Pat?
Well, that does sound good to me. just to start. And I personally also, I think like you, like long-term storytelling. So what excites me most is getting a new volume of Destiny New York done. That's a series that I'm going to run for at least 11 volumes. So as I'm finishing up volume 6 now, I can't wait to get started on 7. I can't wait to get started on 8. Um, and I do a lot of spin-offs in that world. So the one that I'm most excited for is one called Perfectly Dark. That is going to be our first one that comes out as single issues first through Black Mask Studios, who licenses the property. That is going to be our first flashback miniseries. So the idea is it's going to be sort of like a magical Godfather set between the 70s and the 90s. That one I'm really, really excited for. That's going to be later on this year.
Can I ask, when you do your volumes, how many pages are? How many is it? Like 120?
Low end is 130. High end is about 210.
Because I'm thinking of because my Twisted Dark books, they're all 200 pages, 8 volumes of them, and I'm thinking that I should try and reduce the page count. But I want to put more stories out. So
I mean, I feel the exact same way. Destiny New York is the one series where I kind of indulge myself. The truth is that, especially on Kickstarter, the sweet spot for a full graphic novel is 64 to 80 pages as far as return on the money that you spend. But I can't creatively, I can't afford to make Destiny New York shorter. I need that experience to be that thick sort of book that you lose yourself in, you know?
that's cool. All right, let's look at this. What comic hasn't been released are you most excited for in the future? Oh, we just did that one.
I was just if you would have the same answer, you know.
Sorry, now that I'm looking at it again, I'm suddenly thinking maybe they didn't mean ours, but both of us thought about our own comics rather than.
Yeah. I mean, I interpret it as ours because I don't know what anyone else is doing. I'm excited for Toon to come out.
Good answer. Well, I will tell you actually, because so I do love comics, but also the more I do it, if I'm honest, the less I enjoy them because I get more critical about them. Right. And sometimes I go for a long time without finding anything good, which has happened for the last 6 months. And then a couple of days ago, I started reading James Tynion IV's The Nice House on the Lake. Now, James Tynion is one of the hottest writers in the world right now. I've never quite, it's never been my favorite, but this title is easily the best book I've read in the last year. I'm only halfway through the first volume. So I will check out the next volume. I'm excited to see what happens next. So it's a very interesting premise. Let's see. Next question. From Collapser. Neil. Oh, God. So I know who Collapser is. At Collapser, Neil, how does it feel when you see your face has been edited on yet another thing? So Collapser, he takes great delight in taking, like, for example, right now, I'll make an expression and he'll freeze the video, take my face, and then stick it on a dinosaur or on a snail, which he called a sneal. And
Neil,
don't encourage him. Don't. And some of them honestly are quite good, but most of them are just horrific. I don't like seeing my face on things. I only found out 5 years ago, right? So I was in my 40s, that people have mirrors by the front door so they can check how they look before they leave the house. It never occurred to me to check, right. Anyway, so Collapser, how do I feel about seeing my face or something else? I don't like it. Stop doing that. I know who you are, and I will press charges. Okay, so here's some questions here that have come through, actually on the call right now. Will there be another Twisted Dark book or books coming out soon? Yes, our very next Kickstarter. I didn't want to do it, but it's going to be Twisted Dark 8 because it's finished. It's just being lettered now. So that's our next Kickstarter from TPUB. And my CEO has pushed me to have a release schedule of, and thanks to using Pat's superior Kickstarter skills, having like 4 titles Kickstarted a year or something, and having it pre-announced the dates, what's coming soon, so people know that it's coming out, and that forces me to make sure I get it done on time. Why did I announce this? I could have kept quiet. Why did I just put myself in trouble like this? Man, I bet that question was from the CEO. What television shows are you watching? Pat, you go first, and I'll tell you what I'm doing.
All right. I just started watching Beef. That's been quite a ride. I'm 2 episodes deep in Beef. I am doing Last of Us. I think it's good so far. I think like 4 into that. It's pretty good. Boardwalk Empire is one that I'm watching from the past right now. That isn't obviously coming out, but it's a classic, and it's one that I'm kind of wading into and rewatching. I have recently finished with rewatches on The Sopranos and 6 Feet Under, my 2 favorites I always go back to. So right now we're doing a rewatch on True Blood.
Cool. I'm watching Ted Lasso because I love comedy. I watch repeats of Graham Norton's show. Last night we started, because of Raymond, actually watching The Last of Us. We made it about, I'd say maybe a third or half the way through before we said, okay, that's enough for tonight. And it was a bit dark, and which is funny because that's what I write. But it's funny, just with my wife and I, because we start watching late at night. If we watch a film, it takes us 3 or 4 days on average to watch a film. Just having kids, getting up early.
Yeah.
We don't, so TV like when it's an hour-long episode or longer, it's difficult to get through it. Whereas a 20-minute comedy, I can do that. Okay. Are you working with any celebrities, or is there anything about your upcoming books you can tell us about? I can tell you about one. I can't tell you about. So, because it will. Pat, you know how this works. Sometimes there are things that are deals in motion, but it's not signed or you can't announce it yet. But we are working with John Rhys Davies, who is the Gimli the dwarf in Lord of the Rings, and who's Salah in Indiana Jones. We made an original comic with him, and that'll be out later this year, which we're excited about. And there are others as well coming. But yes, in terms of other comics you can announce that's coming out, Trickster we have with Colin McCreary. That's hilarious because he's a very funny man. I'm not. That's about an Irish leprechaun living in Boston. But he's really upset. Everyone thinks that because he's 6 foot. Why do everyone think we're like short and obsessed with shoes? Rory, you have like 300 pairs of sneakers. Shut up. It's but a lot of action as well and darkness. Like I'm not even going to because where I went with the end of the first issue, it's all kind of funny. You turn to the last page and everyone goes, "What? Where did that come from?" But I have to throw darkness in occasionally, otherwise it's not one of my comics. Right. We also have Sandbox, which is about an esports team, a sort of haunted house type story, and Tabernacle, which I think will be the best thing I ever make. That's me. Pat?
Celebrities on upcoming books. I'm working with Tegan and Sarah on an adaptation of Destiny in New York. That has been crazy. I love their music, and when I got the call that they were the ones who were going to be producing the show, I couldn't believe that. So that's been really cool. And as far as upcoming books, got a lot. My slate is it's pretty crazy. I have just announced our new adult imprint through my company, Space Between Entertainment. It's called Cheeky Comics. So from now on, I'm going to keep doing my thing through Space Between. Going to have between, say, 9 to 12 Kickstarters on that per year. And then on Cheeky Comics imprint, we're starting with 4 or 5 this year. And then eventually we'll expand that to probably monthly or almost monthly next year. And so, yeah, a lot to do on that front, keeping Destiny New York rolling, keeping Smoke Weed Through the Future rolling. That's a spinoff of Destiny New York as well. So, yeah, a lot going on.
Cool. We just only have a few more questions left, and then we're out. one is what other Comic Cons will be at later this year. I'll be doing London, Birmingham, New York. Didn't get into Toronto for the first time ever, and I think that's it actually. I can think off the top of my head. There was one year I did 26 conventions in one year, and when my son was born, my wife said that those days are over.
Yeah.
So that's that. Here's an interesting one for you, Pat. Are you afraid AI will replace you?
No, there are things that AI can do very well. Obviously, just by looking at things, the artwork isn't up to par with artists. The one thing that I'm seeing people kind of really panic over, because obviously it came out and I saw a lot of, oh, this is going to replace us, and I get that. I get not liking it. I'm personally not super interested in it, but the one industry that might be in trouble is the new AI Drake song that's out right now that people are kind of freaking out over. That could they could really take a popular artist, copy their style, and run with it, and it won't be too long before it's indistinguishable. That's true. But what AI misses is the personal touch. People who follow artists want to hear about them, hear their perspective. AI doesn't update us on what's going on our favorite artists' lives, on how they feel. It could take what I've done on Destiny New York so far and keep spinning it, but it couldn't take it where I'm going to take it. It doesn't have that personal me of it. It doesn't have that personal who's in the chat right now is art crumbs. AI could analyze anyone's art and copy what they've done and say, oh, this person will continue it this way. But it would never be able to truly predict what is in a human being's mind. We are so much more complex and unpredictable than that. So what the actual Pat Shan, the actual Neil Gibson, the actual Art Crumbs would do at the end of a run, I don't think AI could ever get there. So I'm not scared at all. I'm more scared of it killing us than I am of it replacing us.
Well, I wasn't scared until you said your answer, because you said, see, what AI can't do is it can't tell you about the creator, about what's happening in their lives, what are they feeling, what are they doing? And that's stuff that people do communicate through social media, which I don't use. So,
right.
So I'm irrelevant. Thank you very much. This is a great way to end this show. You've ruined my mood. Thank you, Pat. All right. I think we can wrap it up there. There is one last question, which was, if you could be a guest writer for Marvel or DC, which characters would you like to write for? That's a simple one for me. I would love to write Kingpin, and I'd love to write Scarface for DC. That's the ventriloquist puppet. Those two, I absolutely, because it's the cruelty, but also having a genuine belief you're doing the right thing that they both have. I think that's fascinating, because it gives you nuanced characters, and having this guy who's so I love that film, the Beaver with Mel Gibson. And actually, there's a storyline which I wrote before the film Beaver came out. This goes back 10 years when I first started Twisted Dark, about a puppet and a guy. It's called the pathetic fallacy, when you attribute human emotions onto an inanimate object or to a non-human object. And I think it's a fascinating psychological aspect that people have.
I do that.
Yeah?
Dude, yeah, I mean, I remember as a kid, I would just collect sticks because there was an ugly stick and I felt bad for it. So I would put it in my backpack.
That's nice. It's nice. Anyway, all right. Who would you write for if you're a guest for Marvel or DC?
Marvel, I would do Thor. And DC, I would do Supergirl probably. I wrote some Marvel novels a few years back, and the Thor one was my best received, and I feel like that cast of characters is really interesting and cool, and there's a lot of depth that you can go into, and I've always thought that Thor was funny before Ragnarok. I feel like Ragnarok took it in a way crazy direction that I didn't personally enjoy. But I think that there's a certain humor to the idea of this high character interacting with people who are a bit low by his standards on Earth. So just the humor, the pathos, the mythology, and just the character of Thor really interests me. And Supergirl, there have been so many different takes at DC, and I think that the interesting Supergirl is obvious to me. I don't always see it getting done, but man, oh man, would I love to write Supergirl.
Cool. Awesome. Well, on that note, we'll leave this. I was remembering you predicting my demise because of AI. Thank you very much. And thank you all for watching this. I hope you check out Tuned. I'm rather proud of it. I think it's quite an interesting ride, and I got endorsement from Pat Shan, so that's great. Okay, help me out, Pat. How do I end this so I can get back to avoiding social media?
I think that there should be an end the live button right around where the go live button was.
Okay, let's sign off.
Okay.
Bye, everyone. Thank you. Try again. Bye.